in Parliament, Cape Town. My name is Lukhanyo Khalada. Now, in just a few minutes, we will cross you live into the National Assembly for the first sitting of the House in this new term. You would remember that members of Parliament are back at their desks today and are expecting to carry on with the business of the House. There are two motions that will be tabled in the National Assembly today. The first of them being from the African National Congress that will ask the National Assembly to look at establishing a special or an ad hoc committee at least to look into the report given to the Speaker of the National Assembly by President Jacob Zuma last week. The President gave the Speaker, Baleka Mbete, a 20-page report responding essentially to the reports by the Special Investigating Unit, the Public Protector, as well as the Joint Task Team on Intelligence. The ANC would want the National Assembly to at least set up this establish this ad hoc committee. And there's also a second motion that will be tabled today that is by the Inkatha Freedom Party that would want to obviously say its condolences to the passing of former Member of Parliament Mario Ambrosini, who passed away at the weekend. Now, the ANC proposes that the ad hoc committee consist of at least 11 members who will be as follows. The African National Congress would have 6 of those members, the Democratic Alliance 2 members, the Economic Freedom Fighters 1 member, and other parties such as the NFP, as well as the Freedom Front Plus, to have 2 members each. The ANC also proposes that the ad hoc committee report to the House no later than the 24th of October in 2014.
Thank you, Chair.
We are now looking at live pictures coming to you from inside the National Assembly where the proceedings have just gotten underway. Let's take a listen.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates protection and strengthening of LGBTI rights following the brutal murder and rape of a lesbian woman, Disebo Makau, in Ventersdorp, Northwest, in what is believed to be a hate crime. While South Africa was the first country in the world to prohibit...
Honourable Member, you are also reading out what sounds like a statement.
It's a motion.
No.
I do so move.
We know a motion when we hear one. Okay, there's someone over there.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debate ensuring energy security and promoting clean and renewable sources of energy supply. Thank you.
These are notices of motion. Right at the back.
Honourable Speaker, I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates the role that South African men can play in ensuring an end to violence against women and children.
Honourable Shibambu.
Thanks, Honourable Chair. We move as the AFF that in its next sitting, the House debates the need for legislation on base erosion, transfer pricing, and profit shifting.
I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the near collapse of the African Bank and considers whether appropriate regulation is in place to prevent further contagion. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Member at the back.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the role that South African men can play in ensuring an end to violence against women and children. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates transformation
of the structure of our economy to increase women participating in their access to economic opportunity.
Honorable Member.
Thank you, Speaker. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates assessing the strategies used to retain and recruit health professionals in the country to prevent those seeking opportunities abroad. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Yes, Honorable Speaker. I move on behalf of the NFP that in the next sitting of this House deliberate on the question of the negative impact of current deployment in municipalities and projects awarded to friends, family members, and relatives of those employed in municipalities, as the recent report of the Auditor General stated. I so move.
Honorable Member.
Thank you. The Honorable Speaker, I move on behalf of the EFF that in the next sitting, the House must debate the need for national minimum wage to address the wage imbalances. I thank you.
Yes, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates ways to encourage public and private investment in research and development in the field of science and technology, and the role that research and development can play in economic growth and job creation, given the fact that South Africa spends less than 1% of GDP on research and development.
Yes, thank you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the state of government buildings and come up with a solution to properly maintain them. I thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Honorable Member from the EFF.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. On behalf of economic freedom fighters, I hereby move that in its next sitting...
There we're seeing visuals of the Speaker of the National Assembly, Baleka Mbete, who has not been in Parliament for a while. It's certainly good to have her back and have her back in the chair. Something that she hasn't done in a while. Also, very critical in the ANC's motion today is the fact that the ad hoc committee will be resuscitated before the dissolution or the dissolution of the previous parliament. The former Speaker, Max Sisulu, had of course established an ad hoc committee that looked into the report by the public protector into her report into Nkandla. It's very interesting today, of course, that it is now the ANC again that will be making a recommendation or at least a motion to the House that an ad hoc committee be established. Right now we are watching motions without notice, and very soon we do expect the chief whip of the African National Congress, Stone Sizani, to get up and table the ANC's draft resolution. It does want, the draft resolution does of course propose the establishment of an ad hoc committee to consider the report by the President, a report that President Jacob Zuma handed to the office of the Speaker of the National Assembly last week, Thursday. He also wants, the ANC would want, also propose that the committee will make recommendations, of course, where applicable, to exercise those powers as set out in Rule 138 of the Rules of the National Assembly that are necessary to carry out its task. As mentioned a few minutes ago, the ANC proposes that the ad hoc committee consist of 11 members. The ANC would have 6 out of the 11, the Democratic Alliance 2 members, the Economic Freedom Fighters 1 member, and other parties such as the NFP and the Freedom Front Plus to have 2 members each. or at least 2 members. The ANC also proposes that the report to the House by the ad hoc committee will be submitted by no later than the 24th of October this year. The second draft resolution that will be tabled is expected to come from the Inkatha Freedom Party, with its chief whip, Mr. Naren Singh. It will come, they want the House at least, or at least the motion would be for the House to pass its condolences to the passing of former Member of Parliament from the IFP, Dr. Mario Ambrosini, who passed away at the weekend.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Very relevant issue. Any other notices of motion? Okay, we now come to motions without notice. Are there any motions without notice? Honorable Dlagude.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that on Tuesday, the 12th of August 2014, the Minister of Arts and Culture, Honorable Nathi Mthethwa, led a delegation to the United States of America to bring back the remains of the renowned anti-apartheid journalist Nat Nakasa for burial at home on South African soil. Further note that this comes after the Supreme Court of the New York had granted permission for the remains of Nakasa to be returned home. Recalls that Nathaniel Ndazana Nakasa was born in 1937 in Chesterville, KwaZulu-Natal, and distinguished himself as a transcendent voice in the world of journalism during the 1950s and early 1960s. Further recalls that he was the first black columnist of the Rand Daily Mail, and in 1963 he founded The Classic, the first black-owned literary journal in South Africa. Remembers that Nakasa was granted the prestigious Nieman Fellowship for Journalism at Harvard University in the US, but the apartheid government denied him a visa, and as a result, he was forced to leave South Africa on an exit permit in 1964, which meant that he could not return. Further remembers that after a long career of writing and acting in exile, he became homesick, depressed, and committed suicide in New York in 1965. Acknowledges that the South African government has been involved in the efforts to return Nakasa's remains to home soil for the past 2 years, and thanks the Department of Arts and Culture as the custodian of the nation's memory for playing a leading role in the efforts to rebury Nat Nakasa's remains on home soil. I thank you.
Are there any objections to the motion without notice?
Yes, Speaker.
Okay. Who is that? Where is the person who's saying there is an objection? There's no one. Was it a mistake? Okay. So the motion has been agreed to. We now come to the first motion on the order paper. Oh, there are other motions without notice. All right. I see the House was missing the opportunity to talk. Yes, Honorable Member?
Thanks, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I allow the Honorable Member from the DA.
Oh. Thanks, Honorable Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes the incredible performance of Team South Africa at the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. Further notes that Team South Africa made our country proud by winning a total of 40 medals, including 13 gold, 10 silver, and 17 bronze medals, respectively. Acknowledges that this is 7 medals more than the total of 33 medals that was won by Team South Africa at the 2010 Games. congratulates Team South Africa for this magnificent achievement and further congratulates Mr. Charlie Tlo on becoming only the second person in history to win an incredible 7 medals during a single edition of the Commonwealth Games.
I'm sure the House agrees to this motion without notice, so the motion was agreed to. Other notices of motions without notice? Honorable Dlagute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes with sadness the death of the Nelson Mandela Metro Ward Councillor Buisile Mkavu, who was shot dead in Uitenhage on the 2nd of August 2014. Further note that Mkavu, who fought tirelessly for service and the housing needs for the city's destitute, and vowed earlier this year that he would continue doing so, died at the scene of the shooting. Remembers that Mkavu was a young, dynamic, and vibrant politician who led a task team to intervene in the violence in Motherwell, Port Elizabeth. Recalls that he had been head of the Human Settlement Committee. Believes that the ANC has lost a visionary leader who spearheaded developments in Dispatch and Uitenhage to ensure that more projects are included in the 7-year housing turnaround strategy, and strongly believed in improving communication channels with the community. We convey our deepest condolences to his family, his friends, and the broader Nelson Mandela Bay populace, and calls on the South African Police Services to bring the culprits to book. I thank you.
Any objections to the motion without notice? No objections. The motion has been agreed to. Honorable Chief Whip of the DA.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. On behalf of the House, welcome you back. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House, 1, notes that between the 5th to the 15th of August 2014, South Africa's debating team competed at the 26th Annual World Schools Debating Championship held in Bangkok, Thailand. 2, further notes that Team South Africa reached the final of the championships and narrowly lost out to Team England in the grand final. 3, acknowledges that the World Schools Debating Championship aims to not only encourage healthy debate and free speech, but also promotes international understanding. 4, further acknowledges that South Africa has participated in every World Schools Debating Championship since 1998, and that our teams have consistently performed well. We congratulate the incredibly talented pupils who flew our nation's flag high: Joshua Brumberg, Kate Dewey, Rachel Gardner, Sadia Mayet, and Sam Musker. And we also congratulate the head coach Luke Churchyard, as well as assistant coaches Piwe Salukazana and Alicia Kunene on their team's remarkable achievement.
The motion without notice must be agreed to. Honorable member from the EFF.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. On behalf of the economic freedom fighters, I rise to move without notice to the House that the House notes that on the 13th of August 2014, the Constitutional Court issued an order dismissing the attempts by the disgraced IEC chairperson to appeal the order of the Electoral Court to Parliament to set in motion impeachment processes against her as per judgment issued on the 18th July 2014. Further notes, these judgments of the 2 honorable courts are on record and accordingly vindicates the public protector's findings that of the Treasurer's forensic report on the conduct of the IEC chairperson with regard to the procurement of the offices for the IEC while she was still the CEO of IEC. Further notes that the adverse...
Point of order, Speaker.
Yes, honorable member.
Honorable Speaker, my understanding is that the IEC chairperson's appointment is dependent on the House. And therefore, any statement that reflects on her capacity to hold office is contrary. Therefore, it needs to be processed through the proper committee. And therefore, the statement that is raised by EFF is out of order and should not be allowed.
In fact, when you want to raise a motion without notice, you have to process it to make sure it doesn't raise disagreement and tension, and so it's not what you raise in a motion without notice. Sure. And so we have to be patient with one another. Let us see if there's any other motion without notice. Yes, Honorable Member, you've long been asking for an opportunity.
Thank you very much. I hereby move on behalf of Democratic Alliance that this House notes that a Khayelitsha entrepreneur and founder of Cellular Ulutho Technologies, Mr. Luvuyo Khani, has been nominated for an award at the Junior Chamber International in Germany. Further notes that he has been nominated in the category of business, economic, and entrepreneurial accomplishment. Acknowledges that they started Cellular Ulutho Technology 10 years ago from the boot of his car, and today has 32 stores providing IT and business services to clients around the country. Further acknowledges that Junior Chamber International Annual honors 10 outstanding people under the age of 40 for services, innovation, determination, and revolution thinking. Congratulate Mr. Khani on this extraordinary achievement and wish him the best of luck in his future endeavor. I thank you.
Any objection? No objection agreed to. Any other notice of or motion without notice? Can I recognize the honorable member whose hand I had already recognized? Yes.
Thanks, Chair. I rise on behalf of the Economic Freedom Fighters for this House to note that last Saturday we observed the second anniversary of the Marikana massacre, where workers were brutally murdered for demanding a living wage, and that it is 2 years and the families have not yet seen justice. We also further note that the Economic Freedom Fighters have taken upon itself to build houses for some of the widows, to buy school uniform for children, and to refurbish some of their houses, because those widows continue to exist under deplorable conditions after their caregivers or those who support them has been murdered.
No. Point of order, Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, I was upbraided quite severely in this House last week for not circulating these motions beforehand. And I was informed it's convention in Parliament that we circulate these motions amongst parties to ensure that we are in agreement with them before they come to the House. And that is parliamentary practice.
Yes.
And I would ask that that after my upbraiding last week, that an even hand is applied.
I think we should agree that our colleagues from the EFF are learning slowly, and you need to be patient. That's why I allowed the honourable member to go on, so I could make sure that I'm hearing what he is saying. But I'm glad he's taking it in good spirit.
Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Shibambu.
In terms of the parliamentary rules, that which you have read thoroughly and understand, possibly better than you do, is that motions without notice can be raised by all members of parliament. The practice is not law. It's not a rule. It's not a binding obligation.
Honourable Shibambu, you have to raise your points and your views on rules of parliament in the appropriate forum.
But there is no such rule that
you can't, Honourable Shibambu, come and argue with us in the House. When we practice rules, we have practiced from time immemorial of this parliament. So please go to rules committee meetings or to the meetings of the Chief Whips Forum so that you can engage with your colleagues from different political parties and viewpoints, and then you might get to a point where people understand and agree with you. If not, and you come to the House and want to argue, you are not creating a good spirit in the House, Honourable Shibambu.
Honorable Speaker, I was pointing to you the fact that there is no rule that says that it is
Honorable
compulsory to consult
Shibambu,
on
I'm
these rules.
conducting the business of the House, and I need you to cooperate and let us get on with the business of the House. Is there any other motion?
Speaker.
Honorable Shibambu.
Honorable Speaker,
In fact,
thank you, sir.
he suddenly looked like Honorable Shibambu.
No, I don't. Honorable Speaker, I just want clarity. I just need clarity with regard to what just happened, because a motion without notice, the intention is that the House then agrees to that motion. And that motion that was not circulated cannot be put to the House. I'm not sure if the impression is that the House agreed to it, because if it was not circulated, then I would like to object to that motion. Thank you.
No, Honorable Member, it was not agreed to, because remember, the Chief Whip of the DA immediately rose and reminded us what happened to him. So we immediately were trying to persuade our colleagues for us to move on, because indeed it was not properly processed. A motion without notice. Honorable Chief Whip.
Honorable Shibambu strictly is correct. Surprise, surprise. No, don't be in a hurry to agree. Here is the point. If Honorable Shibambu wanted the House to agree, because basically all of us represent constituencies here and the whole nation. So if you want a House to agree on a particular path or issue, you want to circulate the motion you intend raising so that you have no objection from any party. Because once a motion without notice is objected to, it is dead.
Oh. Okay. Any other motion without notice? You want to raise another motion without notice, or you want to argue?
No, just to emphasize that the Chief Whip of the majority party is speaking to the rules of this House. There are traditions. We don't have to agree on motions.
We are not having a debate about the rules. Right now, you have not circulated your notice, your motion without notice ahead of time. You have not done that.
But Honorable Speaker,
Honorable Shibambu, take your seat. Take your seat, because I'm not debating. I'm not allowing you to have a debate on this matter now. Yes, Honorable Member.
Speaker, the issue of...
Honorable Member, sit down. Take a seat, because you are not raising a motion without notice. We now move on from the motions without notice, because I'm not seeing any other hand. Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that that 3-year-old Luke Tibet, who was struck by a bullet in a gang-related shooting in Westbury, Johannesburg, recently has died. Further notes that the toddler was in a critical condition and has been on life support for a week before he succumbed to his injuries on Friday, the 8th of August, 2014.
Order, Speaker. The notice without motion has not been circulated. So there's nothing that has been circulated.
Okay.
So she can also sit down like all of us. Thank you.
Okay, you've made your point and you can take your seat. But as you will learn, Honorable Member, as you will learn, there will be issues of society where somebody has died, somebody has been killed.
On a point of order, Speaker. You can't.
Honorable Member,
Speaker.
When I am talking, you don't raise a point of order. I am conducting the affairs of this House, and you are not going to disrupt me. Just don't do it. come to terms with it, accept it. That's how we conduct the business of this house. Honorable Shibambu.
Yes.
Allow me to finish what I'm saying.
Oh, and then you'll note me afterwards.
Take a seat.
Please note me after you're done.
Take
speaking.
a seat. Take a seat. There are issues, honorable member, that in your own reasonable mind, there cannot be an argument about people who have been killed, someone who has died, a child that has been killed by an adult. There cannot be an argument about that, about the fact that our humanity says there's no debate about it. We all don't agree that any person must kill a child. So why are we going to make that issue a politicking point? Just finish what you were saying, Honorable Deputy Chief Whip.
Honorable Speaker, here we have a problem. The honorable members of the AFF, they don't circulate their motions without notice. We are in a practice of circulating, and we don't circulate to that honorable member. We circulate to the chief whip of the AFF. He does a tit for tat purely because they could not read an uncirculated motion when ours was circulated. So that is why we think it is not a valid point to say that our motion was not circulated when indeed it was circulated. It's about a 3-year-old toddler anyway.
Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Shibambu, please take your seat.
But you're running these rules on different rules for different people.
Take your seat.
It's not true what the Chief Whip is saying, that those motions are circulated.
Honorable Shibambu, take your seat.
There was no motion circulated. We never received any motion circulated.
Take your seat, Honorable Shibambu. You don't have the right to be on the floor. I want the Deputy Chief Whip here to finish reading her motion without notice on the 3-year-old.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I move without notice that the House notes that the 3-year-old Luke Tibet, who was struck by a bullet in a gang-related shooting in Westbury, Johannesburg, recently has died. Further notes that the toddler was in a critical condition and has been on life support for a week before he succumbed to his injuries on Friday, the 8th of August, 2014. Recalls that the incident sparked widespread outrage across the country and has prompted calls for harsher penalties to be taken against those who commit crimes against children. Acknowledges that two people have been charged in connection with the shooting, and we convey our condolences to the Tibet's family and calls for people to respect the family's request for privacy. I thank you.
The House agrees on the motion without notice. Honorable members, I want to pass now so that we move to the person. Where's the one more? Honorable Kalyan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes that Dr. Navanidham Pilay's term as the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights has come to an end. Further notes that Dr. Pillay comes from very humble beginnings in Durban, where she obtained her Bachelor of Arts in 1963, followed by an LLB in 1995. Recalls that she went on to become the first South African to obtain a doctorate in law from the Harvard Law School. Further recalls that Dr. Pillay had a passion for working with and for anti-apartheid activists and helped expose poor conditions of political detainees, one of whom was former President Nelson Mandela. Acknowledges that she was nominated as a High Court judge by Nelson Mandela and later appointed as judge of the International Criminal Court. Further acknowledges that as the founder of the non-governmental organization Equality Now, she was an advocate for women's rights and also worked tirelessly on issues relating to children, detainees, and victims of torture and domestic violence. Recognizes that Dr. Pillay was nominated by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to the UN General Assembly on the 24th of July 2008, and that she used this platform to drive many human rights issues, including the Gay Rights Resolution approved in 2011 by the UN Human Rights Council. Wishes Dr. Pillay well in her well-deserved retirement. She is a woman of great stature, and her rise to fame has been nothing short of phenomenal. We trust that she will enjoy many lazy days on the beaches of Durban, but hope that she will avail herself and her incomparable experience to the world at large. I so move.
Thank you, Honourable Member. And that motion has been agreed to. And we now move to the first motion in the order paper. The first item on the order paper is a motion in the name of the Chief Whip of the majority party. The Honourable the Chief Whip.
Honourable Speaker, I move that the House, notwithstanding Rule 29, which provides for the sequence of proceedings, limits the business for the sitting of the 21st of August 2014 on questions to the President. I so move.
I put the motion. Are there any objections? There are no objections about the 21st of August. The second motion on the order paper is also in the name of the Chief Whip. Honourable Chief Whip.
Honourable Speaker, I move that the House notes that a report by the President of the Republic of South Africa to the Speaker regarding the security upgrades at Nkandla private residence of the President was tabled on the 14th of August on ATC, and establishes an ad hoc committee to consider the report by the President, to make recommendations where applicable, exercise those powers set out in Rule 138 of the rules of the National Assembly that are necessary to carry out its task. Consists of 11 members as follows: the ANC 6, DA 2, EFF 1, and other parties 1. Other parties 2. And report to the House by no later than the 24th of October 2014.
I now put the motion. Are there any objections?
Madam Speaker.
Yes, Honourable.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
Yes.
May I do so?
Yes.
Thank you. Madam Speaker, I move to amend the motion as follows: that the House insert after paragraph 2B a new paragraph C, D, and E to state: C, the Public Protector's Report, report number 25 of 2013-2014. D, the reports of the Special Investigating Unit established in terms of Proclamation R59-2013 and the submission of the President thereto. And E, all other relevant information or submission in this regard. I do so, Madam Speaker, because I don't believe it's possible for us to discuss the response of the President without having a sight in this Parliament of what he's responding to. And so this motion of amendment seeks to address that deficiency, so that the committee will have those reports with them to be able to go through them and then to take the President's response to those and do that assessment. I so move.
Honourable Chief Whip of the DA, I would like you to submit your proposed amendments in writing. Honourable Chief Whip.
Honourable Speaker, Honourable Steenhuisen is spoiling for a fight.
Honorable Chief Whip, may I first put the amendment, then I can take your input. So, honorable members, the amendment has been put before the House. Now, I have the amendment here, or the proposed amendment, in writing. And I believe it would assist the process now of considering this amendment to the motion, if you yourself and other members had the copy of the proposed amendment. Honorable Chief Whip.
The reason why I say that the Honorable Steenhuisen is spoiling for a fight, Rule 138 specifically says they will exercise all those powers necessary for them to do their work. They cover all this. So what is the problem?
Okay. Honorable members, I put the amendment to you.
Point of order. Madam Speaker, I really don't I appreciate being told I'm spoiling for a fight. I'm trying to assist the procedural errors that are being made by the Honourable Chief Whip's motion. So I'm actually trying to assist him. The bottom line is that we submitted a draft resolution as well.
Let me just put your amendment to the House. Then, you know, we can open for people to comment on the amendment. There's an amendment proposed by the DA which is before the House. And I think that's what we need to focus on. Here is an amendment put to the House from the DA to the House. May I hear the comments of the House on how we deal with the amendment? Honorable Mulder?
Madam Speaker, may I address you on the amendment?
Yes.
What I would like to suggest, Madam Speaker, is that this is rather a very important thing that comes in front of this Parliament, and we all are very much aware of that. My concern is that we have not discussed this whole process in terms of bringing an ad hoc committee now since the President's reply in any political structure such as the Chief Whip's forum or anything. The motion on the order paper has come out of the blue. It was not discussed with other opposition parties. And all I'm suggesting is I do not think we should act over hastily and make a mistake. So if the Chief Whip suggests to the House that what the amendment proposes are explicitly included, that the committee will obviously have to look at all those reports, then we can find a way forward. But I'm not sure that's the case because we have not had any political interaction between the parties.
Honorable Mulder, we received the report of the President on Thursday. The table staff contacted the Speaker immediately, and I gave them an instruction as to how to proceed with the matter. And the matter was taken to the announcements, tablings, and committees, which is the normal space where we put to everybody the issues that come to Parliament. We are now having the first sitting of the House. You are suggesting that there should have been a political engagement somewhere. The letter and the report was addressed to the Speaker, not to any other forum. And I have since brought the matter immediately to the House, as quickly as I could. I don't know what you are talking about when you say it should have been taken to some political forum and so on. Here is the ATC, which is the channel through which we bring issues of this nature to the attention, not only of parliamentarians, but also of the public. So it is the right of the House to consider the next step. I don't know now what you say we should have rather done so that you should have discussed what. The matter is addressed to me. I now bring it to the House.
And I'm saying here is an amendment from the DA. I am saying the House should address itself to how do we proceed. We are putting here the opportunity of an ad hoc committee for Parliament to correctly address the matter, where every party that is represented here will be able to make an input.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. May I address you?
Yes.
Madam Speaker, I accept what you are saying. In terms of the rules, if the House was in an adjournment, then it was possible for the Speaker herself to appoint the ad hoc committee, but the Speaker did not do so because the House is not in adjournment. And in terms of the rules, then the House must take such a decision, and that's correct. That's why it's in front of the House today. I think the concern basically deals with the mandate of the committee to be set up. And all I'm suggesting is that the fact that the amendment does not come from the ruling party does not mean that it's not an improvement on the amendment, and I think it will assist the ad hoc committee if that amendment be accepted, because it will take the process forward in that sense. And I would then ask that the amendment be supported because it will make it easier for us all to do our job. Thank you.
Honorable Shivambu.
Honorable Speaker, if indeed what the Chief Whip of the majority party is saying is correct, that Rule 138 encapsulates the fact that the ad hoc committee is going to discuss the report of the public protector and the SIU report, I don't think there will be a problem with that, because that is what the DA is basically requesting, that let us discuss the reports, because we can't just discuss the response of the president to the reports that we are not given a mandate in the ad hoc committee to discuss. So I think it's a simple issue that we have to deal with, that if we have to discuss the response of the president, we should be able to discuss the reports that the president is responding to. Also, the additional report that comes from the SIU. I don't think there will be a problem with that.
Are you therefore arguing in support of the amendment? That's what I'm asking.
I'm arguing in support of the amendment, and if that Rule 138 encapsulates that, we can leave it like that, but with noting the fact that the ad hoc committee will discuss the two reports as well outside the response of the president.
Okay, that makes your position clear. Honorable Steenhuisen.
Madam Speaker, in fairness to the governing party, I did receive a telephone call yesterday afternoon to say that there would be a motion being moved. I then received a letter from the NA table because what we had done is submitted a motion as well for the order paper, which was in time. I then received correspondence from the table telling me that, in fact, the ANC, the Chief Whip, had moved a motion that was similar in nature. And I was quite comfortable with that, but when we see the motion, and it specifically excludes the Public Protector's report and the SIU reports, which the President is responding to, I become very uncomfortable. Also, I just refer your attention, Madam Speaker, to Rule 214(4)(a) specifically, which says that when an ad hoc committee is established by this House, it must specify the task assigned to the committee. And I would say to you that by excluding the Public Protector's report and by excluding the SIU reports, to which the President's response is a response to, that we are not sufficiently specifying the task. And we leave then an open-ended situation where we could end up with a result that this House never intended. And so I'm asking particularly the Chief Whip to please accept these amendments in the spirit in which they're being made. They're being made to assist the process and to ensure that we close this chapter, that we have answers on it, that we close this chapter in our history and move forward with sufficient answers and not prolong this issue any further. And so I'm making that appeal in the spirit of that. Thank you.
So the Chief Whip of the DA is of the view that he is firmly putting an amendment to help the process. Honorable Singh.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The amendment that has been proposed by the DA amplifies, in my view, the mandate of the committee and the documents which the committee needs to look at. Now, if the Honorable Chief Whip of the majority party is saying to this House that Rule 138 provides for all those documents and any other relevant information to be placed before the committee, then we will accept that if that's what the rule says. But I think we've got to hear from the Chief Whip of the majority party that indeed the documents that are being requested for us to do justice to this ad hoc committee will be made available for the committee to do its work.
Honorable Dudley.
The ACDP supports the amendment, but is also open to hearing the explanation of the relevant rule. Thank you.
Honorable Chief Whip.
The lawyers would advise the parties that an express mention of some exclusively removes the rest. Now, they want us to enumerate specifically how many reports should be tabled. When the Rule 138, if you read it here, it opens the gate completely wide open to everything and anything. So why would you want to amend the rule? If you want us to exclude other actions by the committee, then we can sit here and list the things that could be tabled there. The Rule 138 even goes further to say they determine their own procedure. They will listen to other people coming to them. This rule is open. It's more open than the Chief Whip. You see, the problem here is that the DA went to the media and promised them that we intend killing our own ad hoc committee that we are moving. And that is why they're opposed to our proposal. Our proposal that we're making wide open, as this rule book is saying. What is the problem? We oppose the amendment.
Honorable Shivambu, and then I'm just going to have to put this thing to a vote. Honorable Shivambu.
Honorable Speaker, this thing is very simple. I don't think we must stay on it for a very long time. I don't think the ANC is saying that the report of the public protector and the report of the SIU are not going to be discussed there. So now that there's assurance that they're going to be discussed, let's proceed with the motion as is. I don't think there's a problem. And then part of the committee mandate will be to then deal with the report of the public protector and the SIU, as long as this House agrees that this is the interpretation of Rule 138. Thanks.
I'm allowing the honorable member, I believe from the NFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, I think that motion is absolutely clear. The ad hoc committee has the right. The ad hoc committee has the right to call whoever they want and call for whatever necessary documentation in order to complete that investigation. So any amendment, I think, is a futile exercise, Honorable Chairperson. So on that basis, we will not support it. Thank you.
Your amendment is before us, and I've allowed you before to further motivate, which we have no doubt were confused about what you are saying. We are now exercising a process to persuade members, and the House is debating. Some are saying we don't agree, others are saying go with the motion as it is because it doesn't oppose what you are saying. So do allow us to exercise that right for other honorable members to express their feelings and their views and their understanding of what's before us. Do address me, but I am now going to limit your right to keep addressing me on the issue which is here before us.
Madam Speaker, it's in response to what has arisen in the debate, and that's why I felt it was necessary for me to address you again, and particularly around Rule 138. The amendments do not exclude any of the provisions of 138. In fact, they are supplementary to those amendments. And so therefore, there's no harm to 138 if those amendments are moved, but it does provide the committee with the direction in terms that it needs, in terms of the reports that it must interrogate, against which to measure the President's response. What you do by not allowing the amendment to go through is that you leave the gates open for those reports to not be considered. And that, I believe, is far more damaging to the process than by allowing the amendments to proceed.
I think, honorable members, the House is considering whether this motion brought to the House by the Chief Whip is not a mechanism for Parliament to have some of its own to sit where you will be represented if you will not be there in person. What is your fear? That when you get there, well, you'll probably be outvoted here. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and let the ad hoc committee do its job. I really think we're not doing service to honorable members that are going to be sent by various parties not to trust them to do their job properly. I don't see how we can sit here and when we look around, we think there are some honorable members here that we can't trust. That they'll get there and not do their job. Honorable members, I really have to now, if it seems we can't just agree that we go with the motion, I want to put the amendment for decision now. Those in favor of the amendment will say aye. And those against the amendment, no. I think it's obvious, the noes have it. Yes, Honorable Chief Whip of the DA.
Madam Speaker, it's not the members of this House we don't trust, it's Luthuli House we don't trust. We therefore call for a division.
Okay, honorable members, the bells will be rung for 5 minutes so that honorable members will have an opportunity to make declarations.
Well, visuals from still inside the National Assembly, where of course the matter proposed or the motion proposed by the African National Congress to establish an ad hoc committee to consider the report by the President handed to the Speaker of the National Assembly last week was put to the vote, and members of Parliament, at least members of the National Assembly, voted not to accept the amendments proposed by the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance has since called for a division, which means that for the next 5 minutes or so, the House will now adjourn and discuss. I think at this stage we will hand you back over to our colleagues in studio in Johannesburg, and hopefully we'll see you in a short while when the National Assembly resumes its business.
Zoom into Africa. This is Tunisia. The president is Mr. Monsef Marzouki. Tunisia got independent from France on 20 March 1956. The population is over 10 million people. One of the major languages spoken is Arabic. Monetary unit is the Tunisian dinar.
Africa is growing at a rapid rate.
A huge part of this African growth is technological innovation.
Like a group of students hard at work in Uganda developing tools that will save lives. or an African-developed payment method making the public transport industry cashless in Kenya.
You book me through M-Pesa.
There are apps only for people who live here. And the continent is accepting the growth of modern technology usage in people's everyday lives.
The ICT revolution now belongs to Africa.
This is